Hello, I'm David Dickau, and I am pleased to present several of my pieces from the Pavane catalog. I will begin with Spring Carol, a piece I composed for a community choir in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I moved to Minnesota from California in 1991. I quickly developed a new appreciation for poetry celebrating the return of spring. I particularly enjoyed Robert Louis Stevenson's Spring Carol. The poem tells of sights and sounds of streams and meadows, bringing hope and renewal. The piece is filled with the optimism of Stevenson's poem. The piano provides a particular Scottish lilt. Spring Carol is appropriate for high school, college, or community choirs. like to tell you about my piece, Afternoon on a Hill. It is written for SAB chorus and piano. The piece was commissioned by a fine community middle school choir in Rochester, Minnesota. The poem, by Edna St. Vincent Millay, is filled with optimism and the joy of life, something we can all use a bit more of these days. The choral parts dance with a lilting waltz rhythm. The lower part is written for baritone or combiata voices. The accompaniment requires a good pianist. The piece is appropriate for fine middle school choirs, high school choirs, or adult community choirs. Here is Afternoon on a Hill. I would like to tell you about my piece, High Flight. This wonderful text is best known for its last phrase, "Put out my hand and touch the face of God." From the beginning, the text captures the exuberant joy of flying described by 22-year-old pilot John Gillespie McGee Jr. It is especially moving to know that the poet was shot down over his native Britain shortly after writing the poem. The choral parts and the piano accompaniment join to portray the sweeping and swaying thrills of flying in a small plane. This is a celebration of life. I hope you enjoy High Flight. Next, we have the Coolant. It is scored for SATB a cappella choir and baritone solo. The piece is a great vehicle for an accomplished baritone. I came to love this beautiful, evocative text when I first performed and later conducted Samuel Barber's reincarnations. I particularly responded to the lush depiction of nature and the warm intimacy of two lovers sharing tenderness on the side of a hill. I employed lush harmonies with the choir in accompaniment of the lyric baritone solo. The piece is appropriate for accomplished high school, college, or adult choirs. My final piece is an arrangement of the Battle of Jericho. It was written for a local middle school choir in Mankato, Minnesota. Since the world did not need another stock arrangement of this timeless piece, I took a unique approach. At that time, I was listening to a lot of stride jazz that is associated with the New Orleans sound. I made the choral parts as accessible as possible and put the majority of the challenge in the piano. This piece will provide a fun sing for your students, particularly if you have a fine pianist. It has been voiced for two-part, SAB, or SATB choir. It works well for middle school, high school, and community choirs.
Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Joshua, 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 Joshua. You may talk about your kings of Gideon, you may talk about your men of Saul, but none like good old Joshua at the battle of Jericho. That morning Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Right up to the walls of Jericho, he marched with spear in hand. Go blow that ram horn, Joshua cried, 'cause the battle is in my hand. Joshua, 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 Joshua. Then the ram sheep horns begin to blow, and the trumpet begins to sound. Joshua commanded the children to shout, and the walls came tumbling down. That morning Joshua fit the battle of Jericho,